watch this later. Okay, and one last thing. Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to the first public meeting for the Eatontown Comprehensive Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. My name is Samantha Donovan and I'm with Sam Schwartz Consulting. I am joined by Stephen Wong, also from Sam Schwartz, and Bill Revere from Project Management at DOT. We have just over 20 people on the call today, so just a friendly reminder to please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. There's a couple people in the waiting room, so just 1 second. Keep yourself muted when you are not speaking. Any questions you have throughout the presentation, you are welcome to put into the chat. The chat button should be at the bottom of your screen. And as I just said, the call will be recorded and posted on the project website following the presentation. I'm going to pass it off to Mayor Tellerico. He's going to give you all a brief welcome and introduction to the project.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I see we have a nice cross-section here of people in different groups, and I hope you can take the information here back to your groups and your networks. We much appreciate it. So this is the borough's planning attempts for a comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian plan. We applied for and won a grant through the NJDOT, the local bicycle pedestrian planning assistance program. It required the borough to submit a lot of information, a lot of data, and demonstrate a willingness to move forward in making our town more connected than it is. This is one of the public appearances or public comment periods for people. We want to share with you some of the work product that our planner has been working on. We want to then hear some of your viewpoints. Some of your viewpoints will be easily addressed immediately, and some of your viewpoints will be written down and brought back to a future discussion by the planner and the rest of the committee. Ultimately, this is a project that is spearheaded by our Complete Streets Advisory Committee and our Traffic Advisory Committee. They're working on it jointly, and we look forward to more engagement by the public. And I'd like to just thank our planner for everything that they've been doing, and I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else in the waiting room, cool. So we'll start off with the agenda for tonight's presentation. We're going to discuss the project and what exactly it is, what we've done so far for the study, how you all can get involved, and what the next steps are going to be after this presentation. Throughout the presentation, I can pause, of course, to answer any questions as you drop them in the chat. There will also be a time at the end to discuss any additional questions you all have as well. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the project team. So we have members from NJDOT, Sam Schwartz, as well as our partner Civic Eye Collaborative, who is another firm who will be assisting throughout the project's progression. They are the folks that did the video recording for us that you saw if you were here early. And so we're going to start off with, why are you all here today? So as the mayor mentioned, the borough has been awarded a grant through NJDOT. We will be completing a comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian plan for Eatontown. This plan will provide a vision, goal, and strategy for creating a transportation system that is convenient and safe for walking and biking. The project kicked off in April of this year, and it is scheduled to run through February of 2022. There are 4 technical phases to this project. So we have the data collection phase, the analysis, recommendations development, and the writing of the final plan. Running simultaneously to these technical phases is the public outreach or the meeting and event schedule. This schedule includes meetings of the project's steering committee, 2 public information centers or public meetings, the first of which you're at right now, and a pedestrian road safety audit. So as I just mentioned, for anybody that was on the call a little bit early, we were watching some of the footage that has been collected for this audit. The audit is taking place at the intersections of State Route 35, 36, and Wyckoff Road. We are hosting this audit with a variety of state and county officials because those roadways are in state and county jurisdiction. It's important for us to get all of the necessary officials in front of these issues at these locations so that we can work towards developing realistic and implementable changes. So what have we done so far? So as I mentioned, this project started in April, so it's been a few months now. We have so far completed the data collection phase of this project. The data collection effort allows us to paint a picture of the existing transportation conditions in Eatontown with a special focus on pedestrian and bicycle transportation. The project team so far has collected traffic volume data, historical crash data, transit data, mapping data. We have researched previous planning studies and proposed projects that have happened both in Eatontown, in surrounding municipalities, and in the county. And we also completed a field inventory of selected streets of focus. So we're going to be calling these the priority corridors throughout the progression of this study. These priority corridors are shown on this map. The corridors have been identified by the borough as areas of focus. Along each of these corridors during our field inventory, we took measurements of the roadway and noted sidewalk conditions. So the roadways are listed on the left-hand side of this slide. As we move into the recommendations portion of this study, these corridors will be split into groupings of similar characteristics so that we can develop alternatives that will fit that broader category. These will be both bicycle and pedestrian facilities and recommendations along each of these corridors. Was there a question in the chat that I saw? Can the findings of these studies be used to influence other changes in the future that might not be directly related to biking improvements? The findings of these studies. Sure, yes. So we will be making pedestrian improvements as well. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you mean, but it'll be more broadly related to pedestrian and bicycle safety within the borough and not specifically only biking. So as we move on from the data collection phase, so using all of that data that we've collected, there will be several analyses that we're going to conduct, and most of which we've already started or finished at this point. The first of which is the bicycle level of traffic stress analysis, also known as LTS. There are 4 different levels of stress that are shown in this graphic here. The LTS levels are determined by roadway features such as speed limit, traffic volume, lane width, and number of lanes. LTS 1 is the least stressful and LTS 4 is the most stressful. On roadways of LTS level 1, bicyclists of all ages and abilities should feel very comfortable riding on these roads. These roadways are characterized by minimal and low traffic speeds. LTS 2 indicates that the roads could be comfortably ridden by the general adult population. And while traffic volumes are higher here than on LTS 1, the roadway traffic volumes are still minimal and speeds are still relatively slow. LTS 3 is considered comfortable for bicyclists who are more confident. These roadways tend to have both higher speeds and higher traffic volumes than level 1 and 2. And then finally, LTS 4 is a level that may be uncomfortable for most bicyclists, aside from the avid cyclist who bikes frequently along high stress roadways. And you can see in this graphic, even on the LTS level 4, I apologize, I just had a cat jump on my lap. Even on LTS level 4 here in this image, you can see that there's a bicyclist on the sidewalk in the image. This biker was obviously not comfortable enough riding in the roadway and chose to bike on the sidewalk here. Hopefully this cat just sits here and doesn't move anymore, or not. Okay, so this map here shows the results of our bicycle level of traffic stress analysis. And these are the roadways that are the highest traffic stress based on this analysis. We'll be working on developing recommendations that align with the existing stress levels that we found through this effort on these roadways where possible, or identifying safer alternative routes if it's really not feasible to add a bicycle path anywhere. Okay, so the second analysis that was conducted is the sidewalk inventory and assessment. During the field inventory, sidewalk conditions were observed and inventoried and categorized as either good, which is shown in green, fair in orange, poor in purple, or missing in red. So looking at this map, you can see that a variety of different conditions exist along Eatontown roadways. And an objective of this report will be to identify gaps in the pedestrian network and recommend that those are filled where feasible. So here's a list of the locations that are currently missing sidewalk along these corridors. The third analysis of existing conditions that we've completed so far is a look at the bicycle and pedestrian crashes between 2015 and 2017 in Eatontown. On this map, you can see that the majority of crashes took place along State Route 35, with several others occurring along some of our priority corridors that we've already identified. There were a total of 41 crashes, 16 were bicyclist crashes, 25 were pedestrians, and of these, one was a fatality that occurred at the intersection of State Road 35 and South Street. So we're going to be looking into the circumstances of each of these crashes to determine if it's feasible to include any mitigating factors that could be recommended within the body of the report. So Lisa Lee just asked a question in the chat. She mentioned that State Route 35 and 36 are pretty high stress roads as well. I'm sure that they are, however, they aren't identified as priority corridors for this study, so they weren't part of the bicycle level of traffic stress analysis. We are looking at those intersections as part of the road safety audit, but we're not including the full length of those roadways in our analysis. Okay. So how can you all get involved and how can you help with the progression of this study? So we're conducting extensive public outreach as a part of this effort, along with all of the technical work that we're doing. We are hosting 2 public meetings, the first of which you should know that you're currently at. And we also have a project website that will be regularly updated throughout the study's progression. In addition to this website, we also have a community survey that is live and will be open through the end of the month. So this is a screenshot of the project website. This currently outlines some of the preliminary information that has been gathered. And in the days following this presentation, it's going to be updated with the maps and the information that you saw today. Additionally, at the bottom is a section on the public engagement and meetings. So there's a link there for the community survey. And it's also where you'll be able to locate additional information as we get closer to the second public meeting. So this is a screenshot of the community survey. The survey asks a variety of questions about your experience biking and walking in Eatontown, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you'd like to see in Eatontown in the future. So far, we've gotten just over 90 responses. This is a screenshot of one of the answers. So this one was asking, what do you like most about walking or using your wheelchair in Eatontown? You can see that a lot of people like the street trees that they find along the sidewalks, and they feel safe when they're walking in the sidewalk. So as I mentioned, we have just over 90 responses. It was 96 when I just checked a little bit ago. So please, if you have not already filled it out, go fill it out. Send the link out to others you think are interested in filling it out. We want to hear from all of you, and it just helps us to better understand Eatontown and what you all would like to see. On the right-hand side of your slide is a word cloud. So a couple of the answers allow you to fill in your own response, or at the end, there's a spot to tell us anything else you think we didn't capture in these questions. So these are the words from those specific areas in the survey. So you can see a lot of people use the word bike, need, sidewalks, dangerous when they were pointing out some of the more dangerous areas to walk in town, walking, road. So word clouds like this also help us to better understand, what is the overall attitude and what are the overall feelings of residents towards walking and biking in this space. So what's next? So following this presentation, we will be focusing on gathering as much information from all of you and other members of the public as we wrap up this analysis phase. We're going to take all of that information and the feedback from you to begin developing these recommendations. The second public meeting is going to focus on presenting the draft recommendations to all of you for feedback, so that we can take those comments, make any necessary adjustments, and really finalize these to include in the final plan. And I forgot to switch the slide, so now you can read everything that I just said. So those are all the main points for the presentation today. Now we definitely have some time to go over any questions, discussion items, anything I might have missed in the chat while I was talking. Let's see, if anybody has any specific questions, feel free to, I believe you can raise your hand if you'd like. Let's see. It looks like Steve went through and answered most of these questions for me already. So that's pretty cool.
There's one question from, well, let's just kind of go through those. The one from Jessica asked if the study Carter considers intersections with a high incidence of automobile accidents, which pedestrians and bikes may be avoiding. And the answer to that is yes and no. We know that we know where those bicycle and pedestrian crashes occurred, but we are also and again, it's important to remember that this is a bicycle and pedestrian focused planning effort. But we do recognize that there are locations where, based on vehicle crashes, bicycles, pedestrians, and other roadway users try to avoid those intersections. So for instance, the intersections of 35, 36, we're trying to look at those specifically through that road safety audit, pedestrian road safety audit, to develop improvements there so that pedestrians may not feel as uncomfortable, or other roadway users may not feel uncomfortable. So yes, we will be looking at those hotspot crash locations as well. One of the other questions were, I'm trying to go back to find the ones. Oh, so Cindy asked for examples of the roads in Eatontown that fall into the bicycle level of stress categories. So we'll make this presentation available so that you can review those, the differing levels of stress. But it's also something that you can kind of do on your own as part of this project. Really the level of stress analysis focuses on, a couple of characteristics: vehicles, posted speed limit, vehicle volumes, the presence of shoulders, truck traffic, those kinds of things. So as you are, when you think about a more residential street, you can kind of feel that would fall under the lower stress categories. But as again, you get to the state roadways and the county roads, the county routes, those have those indicators that make it uncomfortable for all but the most hardcore of cyclists. So we kind of look at these things, but it's pretty intuitive, right? We just provide a way for the community and transportation planning professionals to quantify certain things. So we can share that information with you. It will be provided in the report, in the final report, but we can also make that available. So as interested parties want to go out, and I think Lisa had mentioned maybe doing walkability audits and things like that, or bikeability audits. All that information we would certainly encourage and incorporate into this project. And then we talk, there's also the question about, doing a deeper dive into Route 35 and Routes 36. In order to do a study like that, a safety study like that justice, that would take more resources than we have available through this grant. Because if we're looking at those corridors, we want to look at longer stretches. We also want to look at, all of the issues, almost like a concept development study, where we would look at not just the safety aspects, but also other things that may fall under roadway maintenance and infrastructure type things, like, the signing and striping that we saw in the video, where I think someone had mentioned, that there's a crosswalk that needs to be restriped. So, that is something that can be looked at, generally what would happen is, for state roadways, the municipality can request additional studies. Again, that would be through a different group. So this grant is being administered through the Office of Bicycle Pedestrian Programs, which is also part of the larger safety group. But this specific grant is looking at bicycle and pedestrian and complete streets mobility. Safety group would be another request. So, there's a little bit of administrative red tape, I would say, but it's certainly something that we can talk with you about and figure out what those next steps would be. Dee asked if we would provide you with the amount of the grant that Eatontown received. Generally, we do not provide that information. We do this for other municipalities as well. So really, it depends on the scope of work. Eatontown is a little bit bigger, a little bit more urban, a little bit more dense. And when we scoped this project with the borough, we had to limit what we could do based on the confines of the grant program. But what I will say is that we don't typically have road safety audits incorporated into these types of grant programs, and mainly because we don't always have the convergence of two state roadways and a county roadway. So, that is something that is unique to Eatontown, and Bill Revere at DOT agreed that extra step is something that would be important. So what I'm trying to say is, other municipalities may say, well, we didn't get that, or our study wasn't valued as much. We try to avoid letting providing that information. So I hope that I know that doesn't answer your question, but I hope that explains why.
Steve, the mayor has his hand raised, so I just want to check
I'm
and
sorry.
see if he wanted to
Mayor?
interject.
Yeah, Mayor, go ahead, please.
So thank you. So a couple of these, to address some of the questions as well, I can tell you from the borough's perspective, and if someone tells me how to put my hand down, I'll be happy to do that. I just don't know how to do it. So this is part of many steps of long-term planning. One of the results that you'll see is information suitable to become a master plan amendment. So we could then put information, this report, either in whole or in part, into our master plan, which would require further development to make sure there is no deviation without justification as part of future development. So there are other intangible benefits of having such an audit as well. Parts that come through a redevelopment area can also be part of the redeveloper's agreement. And the borough has intentions, though not discussed publicly yet, at applying for other grants that we would only get because we have the street cred, so to speak, of this grant. You know, what we found in a lot of our success is that you win one grant, you win this next one, you win the next one. So having this grant opens us up. And by the way, our willingness to interact with the DOT, it's not a coincidence that we're very happy the grant ends in February, because at that point, the borough is putting together its capital improvement budget. And you better believe that the council members are going to then be saying, what, starting with low hanging fruit, can we take and put into our capital program? And then as the grant writers see that we are doing what the recommendations say, that opens us up to a larger pool of resources. So I don't want the public to think that this is how we solve all the bike problems and pedestrian problems in Eatontown. This is our baseline audit to point us in the right direction. So that is a lot of what we saw coming here.
That's right. And just to kind of follow up, you know, the most important thing when applying for those grants is having the research to back it up and having a comprehensive plan on Eatontown's books. So when a project comes up, you can say, look, you know, as a municipality, we want this. And it's that strength of community support that gives your application teeth, right? It's what the DOT wants to see, or FHWA wants to see, or NJTPA wants to see when they're awarding these grants. So, you know, this is sort of that first step by saying, here's what our vision of our town should be, right? You know, we're not doing this to fix something tomorrow or 5 days or 5 months. This is a 5 to 10 year process, or even longer, right? So this is the very first step, and part of our final product will give you a list of grant opportunities so that you know where to look. You know, as you're ready to do that, as you're ready to move forward with certain pieces, and it's not doing it all at one time. It's doing a piece here, a piece there, right? You're tacking on certain things to road resurfacing projects, right? So you're just doing segments at a time. So that's where that over 5-10 years, when you're doing those roadway infrastructure projects, you're just kind of filling in gaps. And in 5 to 10 years, when you look back, you're like, huh, now we can get from there to there. We have that, even though it just started as maybe a few blocks in the beginning. So this study and the plan that will come out of it is really that first step to helping Eatontown become what they want, become what you want it to be. That's what this outreach is. Let's hear, you know, we need to know what you want to see, right? DOT, you know, one of my colleagues there had said, you know, we're not interested in building something that the community doesn't want, right? So that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that buy-in from the community.
Yep. And also, if I could just add one thing, I'm not going to call her out, but on the call tonight, we also have Debbie Martinock, who is a member of the Board of Education. Yeah, we're going to be eventually having chats with the Board of Ed saying, hey, you want your kids to get to school safely, and the borough wants everybody to get to school safely. Maybe we'll jointly apply for safe routes to school funding. And so we're forming those networks, and having plans in place will make these grants cumulative. So that's what I saw some of the questions that people were asking. I just wanted to reassure you, this is part of a multi-phase process.
Exactly. And then I was just reading an article, Montgomery over on the western part of the state. They're building shared use paths or off-road trails in conjunction with Rutgers Cape Center for Advanced Infrastructure Technology. And they're piloting porous pavement, right? So one of the issues with developing those types of trails is that you're creating new surface area where the water has nowhere to go, right? And so DEP and the environmental agencies have a lot of restrictions and regulations with regard to that. But they're testing out a new pavement that bikes and pedestrians and wheelchairs and all users can use. It's a firm surface, but it allows the water to drain through it and down into the aquifers. So that's something that I thought was pretty exciting. Along with our infrastructure improvements, we also look at green infrastructure. So looking at opportunities to create more environmentally friendly facilities.
Just one thing to address, and we can go back to respond to Dee. She asked if the NJDOT recommended you or was there a bid. The way this works is we applied for the grant, and the DOT is the one that matched us with the planning consultant. This isn't something the borough bid for, but that's the machinations of how we got matched with our planner.
And there are two other consulting firms to dig a little deeper into the weeds there. NJDOT releases a request for proposals every 3 years. So this is a 3-year on-call project we have with them to do this type of work on behalf of NJDOT. And there are 3 firms, and of the 3, we're all equally qualified, and we were selected to support Eatontown on this particular project. There is no cost to the municipality, and all the cost is, it's not even a reimbursement type project where the municipality is putting the money out and then getting reimbursed by DOT. That's not how it is. We're being paid directly by the Department of Transportation and Bill Revere. Sam, can you put up the project website? And maybe it's a good time just to kind of show the project website if you have it up.
Sure.
What is the URL of the project website? Sam will put that up there.
I did.
Is this survey aimed at leisure or necessary riding for the purposes of getting to work? It's both. It's really both. It's designed to provide connections within Eatontown, but also to other areas like the shore or your neighboring municipalities. So it's really what we want to hear is for anyone who is riding for exercise or just for fun, to those who need to ride to commute to work, and also for pedestrians or that are using the roadways too. Anyone who's using the roadways, not in a car, those are folks we want to hear from.
So I just put up the project website to scroll through quickly, but we've also been asked to show the accident slide, the crash slide.
Okay.
So I guess I will switch back to that real quick.
Well, so also someone asked how many surveys were emailed. The surveys were not emailed to folks. They were provided the link to the survey.
Yes, I answered that one in the chat.
Oh, sorry, didn't see it.
It's okay. So this is the crash slide back up. Does anybody have any specific concerns or specific roadways or specific intersections that they would like us to make note of tonight while you are all here? We want to make sure that we're hearing your concerns and hearing them early so that we can make sure that they're included in our recommendations development process, especially if they're already included as one of our priority corridors here. So we've got Monmouth Road.
Yes, hi, this is Dee Slattery. I'm wondering, how are you integrating roads that go into our other communities? For example, Parker Road and Monmouth Road. Actually, I had a very severe accident there. But that's just one example, whether it's 36 going into West Long Branch. I'm just curious as to how you're integrating some of these roads that also lead into other communities, and what is the process and your approach to that? Thank you.
Sure. So any roadways that connect into neighboring municipalities, part of the data collection process is to collect their master plans or any bicycle and pedestrian plans that these neighboring municipalities may have, and looking at what they're already looking to put onto their roadways. So if we can help connect, if they're looking to put a bike lane on a road that comes right into Eatontown on their side, maybe it makes sense for that bike path to continue into Eatontown. So we're definitely looking at those plans, seeing what they're looking to do and how it can tie into what we're recommending in this plan.
So this kind of ties in, and bear with me for a minute. One of the other questions here is, are there examples of towns that have reversed their super busy roads into a more bike ped friendly environment? And the answer to that kind of dovetails with what Sam just said. And this is a project Bill Revere worked on. It's Atlantic City and Margate. They're neighboring towns, and what they are doing is they road dieted a particular road. I forget which one it is, but both municipalities work together, so it goes through Atlantic City and continues straight through Margate as a road diet. And what a road diet is it reduces the number of lanes or narrows the lanes to provide bicycle lanes as part of that roadway crossing. So yeah, I mean, they certainly do that. Municipalities have done it. Other examples would be up in Montclair, where they've installed a lot of bicycle lanes. And really what it comes down to is, what is the appetite of the municipality? Are you willing to deal with the outraged and appalled calls from people who it takes them an extra 2 minutes to get home every day now for the sake of having bike facilities or something, better accommodations, safer accommodations for bicyclists and pedestrians. Some of the non-infrastructure things are leading pedestrian intervals, right? So what it does is you have a longer all red phase. So at high pedestrian crossings, the pedestrians have a little extra time to not only cross, but also to establish themselves in a crosswalk. So, right, because the rules are within a striped crosswalk, a marked crosswalk, stop and stay stopped for pedestrians. So if the pedestrian is further out in that crosswalk, turning vehicles will have a better opportunity and should be more visible to motorists, making that, trying to make a right turn. Now, does that delay the motorist for a few seconds? Yeah, it will. So, it's kind of a balance between roadway operations and safety. And what drives that is the town, right? So if Eatontown says, you know what, we want our roads to be safe, and if it means people are going to have a little longer commute, so be it. Or some municipalities have said, you know what, I don't want to listen to people complain for the extra 30 seconds it's going to take for them, to get through an intersection. So, this is part of the encouragement to everyone on this call to talk to their neighbors and talk to their community members, to reach back down into your network of friends and say, hey, we're doing this, the borough's doing this. Let's get involved and let's start talking about what's important to us. Is it really important for my son or daughter, my child, to be able to walk to school? Absolutely. And we want them to do it safely, right? So that's where you kind of bring in all those different aspects, right? The mayor mentioned safe routes to school, and Lisa Lee's here from the TMA. So we have the right people here talking about it. So again, we're here to understand what Eatontown wants, you're the experts on your town, you're the ones who live there. How much do you want to go, right? So that's what we're trying to understand through the public information centers and talking with stakeholders and different community groups. What's important, you know,
Yep.
and how important is it? What are you willing to sacrifice?
Yep, thanks, Steve. And also, we're all the streets that you are putting in the chat dialogue, we're writing them down. So just because, you know, Stephen can't go to every single comment and address in real time, but just because you don't hear it addressed, I want you to all be aware that we are in fact writing down not only the street, but the types of concerns that you're saying with the street. And this is the public input that we are looking for. Someone just mentioned walk their children in the, you know, with strollers. Of course, you know, these are the types of concerns. So I don't want you to think that just because your comment wasn't addressed, we are writing everything down as we go along here. Someone mentioned the neighboring communities. In fact, it was a neighboring mayor that had applied for this, that reached out to me to encourage it. So the neighbors are talking, and the borough recently adopted a sidewalk ordinance. We have two council members on, Councilmember Alsofsky, who represents Complete Streets, and Councilmember Jones, who represents Traffic Advisory. We recently adopted a sidewalk ordinance that is going to require developments to put sidewalks at their site. Well, now we have an ordinance, and we're going to have a master plan showing what we're looking for. So these are little pieces of the puzzle that we're putting together. Steve, I think Juana has a question.
Yes,
Yeah, Juana, go ahead. Yeah.
yes, I have a question. You know, most of these accidents are happening along Route 35 and 36. So I'm trying to understand how you put together a comprehensive pedestrian and bicycle plan when those roads are excluded from the study. I mean, are you gonna do like quadrants where you have a plan, you have like a safe walking within the quadrants where you don't actually cross over 35 and 36?
So we will be looking at specifically these crash hotspots at, you know, along the state roadways. But what we wouldn't be looking at is the entire corridor. How can I explain this? We would, so the detail in which you'll see, you know, you'll see with the pedestrian road safety audit, it's pretty detailed. We're actually there looking at all of the facilities. We wouldn't be able to do that for the entire Route 35 and 36 corridor, just because they're pretty wide, they're pretty long, and you know, likely they're going to have a lot of issues and concerns. So, you know, that being said, for those areas where you see like the bright red spots on those state roadways, we'll be looking at those. But for the rest of the roadway, we will also be, and really for the borough, we're going to be making sort of blanket recommendations. So for instance, sidewalk, you know, we're going to specifically call out certain areas where there's sidewalk gaps that should be addressed quickly. But again, you know, along with the ordinance to put in new sidewalk, you know, you know, Eatontown already recognizes that that's a need, right? So we would be documenting in this report, in this plan, that when NJDOT is coming through to repave those roadways, if there are any missing gaps, they should be filling in those gaps with the sidewalk.
And also, Stephen, just for people to add, another reality is there is no funding available for towns to do all the substantial work it would take for this amount of corridor of state and county highway. One of Eatontown's disadvantages is that we have a lot of state and county roads, and eventually we can apply for larger, more substantial grants as we get onto it. But this grant, and there are many to apply for, this grant focuses on a town-wide system, a little bit of what we need everywhere, and where we see our weaknesses, we can then focus on the next grant. Just because you don't see it in this one doesn't mean that we're giving up after this. And finally, knowing where the pedestrian accidents are, even if it's not in roads under study, allows us to help plan alternate routes on those roads that are under study to get people off the bad roads and onto safer roads. So there are other benefits to doing other corridors. That's why we looked at priority corridors, because Eatontown is vexed with state and county roads. If that's all we had to study, there's no grants available to do that at this juncture. So we're focusing on the smaller areas that we can control and address and build from there. I think Cindy has a question.
Yes, I do. The concern that I would like to see addressed is, what about education? One of the items that was mentioned in the survey was, do we find, as we're walking around town, cars that are parked on sidewalks daily, more than daily, and not just a car occasionally being parked at the end of a particular driveway, but habitual offenders? This is very dangerous, especially for neighbors with strollers. But even if you're only walking by yourself, every time you have to walk around somebody's car that is not in their driveway, but is across the entire sidewalk and down the apron of their driveway, it makes it unsafe for the pedestrian, who then may have to walk out into the roadway. And there may be other cars parked, which makes it more difficult for cars that are moving to see them. So that's one education item. People need to be educated in our town that it is not okay to park on the sidewalk. If your tires are on the sidewalk, then move your car closer to your garage or to the far end of your driveway. Don't leave 6-foot gaps between your car and your garage door. Move up, be courteous to your neighbors. And another one is cyclists on the sidewalks. Cyclists don't belong on the sidewalks. The sidewalk is supposed to be for pedestrian traffic, wheelchairs, strollers, and foot traffic. So not just kids, and I'm not saying a tiny little cul-de-sac where the little kids learn how to ride on the sidewalk. I'm talking about roads like Parker Road, where there are some long sidewalks, Wall Street, Wyckoff Road, Broad Street, where there are long sidewalks, and people are using them for cycling traffic and not giving way to pedestrian traffic. We need to educate the community to say that this is not okay. It's endangering the pedestrians.
Yep, those are excellent points. So one of my response to that is, when we talk about bicycle pedestrian improvements and these types of projects, we subscribe to what's called the 4 E's: engineering, education, encouragement, and enforcement. And sometimes other E's are added in, right? Equity is sometimes added in, emergency services, and then usually those are with roadways projects. But we will be making recommendations for all of it, right? So we'll be looking at recommendations for the engineering part, and those are going to be those infrastructure improvements. Bike lanes where appropriate, curb extensions where appropriate, daylighting intersections, those types of treatments. Education, that's something you work with your TMAs. Again, it's part of Safe Routes to School, teaching kids the rules of the road, and also the drivers' rules of the road, including those that are parking on the sidewalk. So yes, there are education components that are available and will be included in the recommendations. The last thing that we kind of rely on is enforcement, and sometimes it becomes an enforcement issue. If you've done all that engineering and you've done all the education and the encouraging people to do it, sometimes that's the sort of the last straw. And I get law enforcement, they have a lot of ground to cover and they have a lot of things to do. But there are grants that are available for One of them is the cops and crosswalks, right? I mentioned when pedestrians are in a crosswalk, vehicles are required to stop and stay stopped for them to cross. So one of the grants provides funding for police departments to have a undercover cop just in regular street clothes walk into an intersection, and vehicles that don't stop, they get pulled over further downstream by a marked car. So, you'd be surprised. It only takes one ticket to drive that point home for a lot of people. Again, yes, Cindy. So don't worry. We're going to be looking at all of that and providing those recommendations for all of that. So thank you for that.
And Cindy, you could reach out to me, Councilwoman Jones, or Councilman Alsopsky that are on here. You can get our information on the webpage. We could privately chat either with those residents if we know them, or code enforcement has a new policy where we try to send out a little friendly reminder to get people to move into compliance. But even if we never got this grant, we don't want people parking on sidewalks. So feel free to reach out to any one of the three of us, and we'll be happy to help.
Just to follow up on Lisa's question, why the three intersections, of the triangle, why they were specifically called out to do the road safety audit. That road safety audit is going to have representatives from the state and from the county engineering. And really, when we're going to be looking at recommendations there, it's best practice for us to have those people in charge of those roadways there, because they may have certain rules and requirements with regard to traffic and what they can and can't do. So that road safety audit process is to bring them out there, identify the issues, come up solutions together, so that once they move forward, we already have the buy-in from the state and from the county. So that's why those three specific intersections are chosen for that particular type of activity. And at the same time, we will certainly have people from Eatontown involved, because part of it is helping, especially people from DOT and the county who are not there all the time, understand the challenges for the communities. So that's why it's not just, it's part of a existing conditions analysis piece, identifying the deficiencies, but it's also part of the outreach, because we want the community to interact with those people who manage and run the roadways. If the study cannot access some of the roads, Easy Ride and our Safe Routes School team can come up with, yep.
Yeah, I think it's great, actually. I mean, I'm not sure that those are the roadways where a lot of people would choose to bike, but Steve, it's definitely great if Bill and the state and the county, like I see Michael Nice, in this call, if they look at those roadways, they are the ones who have the jurisdiction to make the repairs. So that's a good thing, because we could recommend all sorts of recommendations, but unless the state and county agree to do it and take on the funding, it won't happen. So I think this is a golden opportunity to make those roadways safer.
And really, we just want to get the right people in the room at the same time talking about it. And that's sometimes all it takes.
Yes, hi, this is Dee Slattery again, and I just wanted to thank you and also to the mayor and the council members that are involved and engaged in this initiative. I think it's a very important initiative. Thanks for opening it up to the public. I think it's a great way to serve the community with a long-term view that responds to the importance of safety, but also quality of life. So thanks in advance for all your work, and I'll look to be active in however I can help as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
So also on this call, we have members of our environmental committee and green team. I referenced a member of our Board of Education, Carl Lawson, which I think has been involved in everything in town, Barbara Stark, some names here, and then also some newer names, which I'm very happy to see. We have people on Complete Streets, Traffic Advisory. What else am I missing? And just residents that aren't on our boards but still interested. So there's a large cross section here. Each of these people are going to go back to their groups. They're going to share these comments. And when our steering committee meets again, we'll have a robust discussion of that. And if in the meantime you have, Samantha Donovan put her email in your invitation. If you have any streets that you think of and you don't want to reach out to us, you can certainly reach out to her, tell her, we're compiling all these, not just for this hour and so meeting, but the borough really wants to hear. It's on our webpage. So if you can't find your invitation, you can go to the borough's webpage, look on the left. Our planning study link is there, and we'll be happy to hear any thoughts you have.
Yeah, my email is also on the project webpage. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, so if you can't find the invite, it's right on the website too. So I look forward to you all bombarding my inbox with a ton of information.
Yeah.
Sam, why don't you pull back up the webpage and just walk through it?
Yeah. So let's see. Okay. And my screen share is paused. There we go. So this is the homepage on the website. There's a couple different ways to navigate through it. So you can either scroll through the whole thing. It will just keep going until you hit the end, but there's also a navigation bar at the top. So if there's a specific section you want to get to, like if you're looking for my email address, you can just click the Get Involved button at the top of the screen here, and you'll see all of the information about how you can get involved. So this is where the link to the community survey is located. This is where the registration link for the meeting tonight was, and this is where you can find my email address to submit any questions, concerns, or additional information you'd like to provide. Alternatively, if you don't want to click and skip to the end, you can just keep scrolling through. So we have a project overview here that provides a little bit of background about the program through NJDOT and what the goals of this study and this plan are. As you scroll further, you can see some of the different maps that we've started to create. So this first one here just shows Eatontown. It shows the bus routes here in black. It shows some of the parkland and agricultural land. And then it also shows you the schools that are in the area. Second, we see the NJDP environmental justice map. So this shows the overburdened census tracts within Eatontown or census block groups. And then we also have a map of the priority corridors, which we discussed this evening. So after this meeting, I will be going through and adding some of the newer maps that we presented tonight and some of the additional information about the bicycle level of traffic stress analysis, sidewalk inventory, and the crash analysis we've conducted, so that will be available on the website as well. And this information will be continually updated as we close the survey, as we post results from the survey, as we schedule the second public meeting. All of that will be available in the Get Involved portion of the website.
And we'll be keeping the survey open for another 30 days, Sam?
The survey is open through the end of the month, so it's additional 2 weeks. If we feel like we haven't gotten enough responses, or if we know that there are people that we're still waiting on to respond, we can definitely extend that as needed.
But we encourage you to again talk with your constituents, your friends, your neighbors, and get them to fill that survey out. It takes, I don't know, what, 10 minutes, something like that.
Yep.
So
Should only take between 10 and 15 minutes to fill out.
yeah, and it's really it's we want, this is your project. We want to hear from you. We are an extension of Eatontown for this project. So you're the expert. Let us know what we need to do.
Okay. Sounds like all right. Danielle's got her hands up.
Hello, I was just saying, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who attended today's meeting, as well as a big thank you to the team at Sam Schwartz for all your hard work. I thought this was excellent, and this is a great first public meeting. I just also wanted to remind everybody that's on today's call that if you go to our borough website, as well as our borough social media, there have been graphics and information posted with the links to the survey as well as the plan. So please share it with your neighbors and your friends, anyone who is involved with Eatontown. We want to get as much feedback and participation as possible. And I also want to mention that I do see my fellow councilman Joe Osofsky on the call too. So if you have concerns to bring to the Complete Streets team or the Traffic Advisory Committee, please let us know so that way we can share it with our fellow committees and we can make sure we can address some of those concerns.
Sounds good. Anyone else?
This is Bill Revere from NJDOT, and just to kind of wrap this up, I wanted to thank everyone for participating and just remind you to stay involved, because this study will only be as good as the input we get from the experts, which are all of you that are living with all of this every day. So stay engaged, keep up with the website, send us your input, and Mayor Talarico and the Eatontown team's done a great job of pushing Complete Streets forward compared to most of the other places that I've dealt with in the state. So to keep the momentum going, stay involved. So thank you.
Thank you.
And have a good night. See you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, folks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Everybody.